chaotic day on the Tour de France. Plenty to unpack as potentially Remco is primed to have a sort of unholy alliance with Pogacar to usurp Jonas and jump into second place on GC. Plenty to unpack. Sarah, let's get into it.
It was amazing, wasn't it? What a stage.
Good stage, a lot going on.
Just keeps giving and giving, the Tour de France, because you kind of think, okay, this is sewn up now. This is boring. They're going to go through the motions over the next couple of days. But we're not really seeing that at all. But I know that you're going to get into that later. I want to talk about a couple of things that happened overnight.
Even before the overnight, just to give people a little tease of the Remco Pogacar, because I know we led with that maybe some people think it's totally insane. But Remco, after the stage, said, I think Tadej could have reacted to me, but he left Visma Leasebike do the work. We're going to get into all that in a little bit, but let's talk about what happened overnight first.
Okay, well, there has been a little bit of controversy over the kind of the middle week of the Tour de France, I think, or maybe before it started. There was quite an interesting article in the Escape publication where it basically kind of said that tour riders are inhaling carbon monoxide to optimize their altitude training. And in the article, it basically outlined how teams Visma and UAE have this very specialized equipment, that they're using it for testing, but they're completely denied that they're using it for performance enhancement. So the teams have just, as I said, been doing that party line all along. They've been saying, we're not using it for enhancement. It's a tool. We use it. Yes, it's not banned. It's totally legit and it's all above board. It's fine. But people have really clung on to this story. And I know that you're not a huge fan because you kind of think this is a non-story. It's, you know, the teams are kind of saying, well, we're not doing it. Why keep banging on about it? Pogacar keeps on getting asked about this, as do all of the Jumbo Visma riders. And yesterday, Pogacar made a little bit of a faux pas. He was kind of joking when asked by a reporter, had he ever inhaled carbon monoxide to get these gains in altitude? He was like, I've never even heard of that device. He kind of joked it off and kind of laughed. And then today he was tackled on it again and he did kind of like a full 80. He actually blamed the language barrier. He just said, like, yesterday that question wasn't completely clear to me and sorry I didn't give you a straight answer on it. He said that the question wasn't posed as clear as it was today. So essentially he said it's a test in altitude camp to see how you respond to altitude. You need to do this test. It's like a 2 or 3 minute long test where you breathe into a balloon for 1 minute and then you see the hemoglobin mass and then you need to repeat it 2 weeks after. He went on to say that he actually did this test at the start of his latest altitude camp, but didn't get a chance to do the second test to see how he was responding because there was some mix up with the girl who does the testing. She didn't make it over to the altitude test. And he's just kind of a little bit like, okay, can we please put this to bed now? Can we be done?
Well.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused as to why this is a story.
Well,
an article came out to say riders are using carbon monoxide. All the teams said we're not using carbon monoxide. The article had no evidence that they were using carbon monoxide. I don't know why it's still going. That's the whole story.
I know, but the articles and journalists love stories like this because it's snowballing. This story is, and everybody's into it. We have gotten text messages from people who into our local Roadman group about this article. People are interested in this because they see that World Tour riders and teams are trying to eke out every single percentage that they possibly can, and we want to know what they're doing to get so good. I totally agree. I really hope that this can be dropped because I think it's completely unsubstantiated.
Plus the racing's amazing. Let's focus on the racing. The racing is so
amazing.
good.
But we can't move on from Pogacar unless we have a quick mention of Mao. So anyone who's on cycling Twitter will know that on Reddit that this character has been on Reddit over the last couple of months claiming that he's really very close to Pogacar's coaching team and he has paced Pogacar on the scooters, that he understands Pogacar's training and he knows his numbers, and he's released a lot of in-depth information about Pogacar's numbers. I think you had a long look at those numbers this morning, and he's kind of saying that since Pogacar moved away from his old coach Inigo and he's moved to a new coach Solar, I can't remember his name, but basically that his new coach is way better. He has him doing proper intervals. He's not obsessed with zone 2 training. And this has kind of all come out in the wash. It's been really interesting to watch. Now, this Mao character, that's his pseudonym, he has been blasting this all over Reddit. That's been brought over to Twitter. He's completely anonymous. And apparently he keeps getting kicked off Reddit for these 5-day bans, because when people tackle him and kind of challenge him on the information that he's putting out, he's really rude, he's really obnoxious, and yeah, he's just
again, my problem with this story and the other story is they're just literally hearsay. It's just he said, she said. There's no corroborating evidence. Corroborating like being something independent that backs up what someone is saying. There's no corroborating evidence on this. Pogacar's come out and said this Mayo guy like isn't speaking any truth, that he's making these numbers up in some sort of random number generator. So it's like we could spend a half an hour diving into going, oh my god, Pogacar's zone 2 is 5 watts per kilogram, but it's all made up.
I think you looked at those numbers this morning and you were a little bit affected by it. You were kind of like, okay,
I could. What you would expect though for
really?
The times he's riding. Yeah, well, you have the data from what he's riding climbs at. He rode sea level equalised 7.14 watts per kilogram for 27 minutes the other day. So you can extrapolate his zone 3 and his zone 2 from that if that's a threshold type effort.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know. Again, there's so much good cycling going on. Let's talk about the cycling.
Yeah, but we're so obsessed with getting to know the inner workings of these athletes, because as cyclists we know how difficult the sport is, and we're just like, how in God's name are they able to do this? Like, they must come from a different planet. So I can totally understand why people are obsessed with this.
Summed this up best for me. He was asked on Danish TV. Chris Huel Jensen, he's technically Danish, but we're claiming
we
him
love
as
him.
Irish.
Yeah.
I had a podcast out with him. I called it The Irishman, because he's raced at all the Irish races. He knows the entire Irish
He spent
scene.
A lot of years here. He grew up here.
He was in the Danish TV last night, and he was asked about carbon monoxide and would he do the rebreather. They said to him, it's as damaging only as a cigarette. And he responded with, I prefer to have the cigarette.
Yeah, I love that
so I think that's kind of where I stand with all that.
Before we move on, can you in 2 minutes tell that amazing story why we love Chris Huel Jensen, about him helping out somebody who was less fortunate on the Irish scene?
One of my teammates, Mark O'Callaghan, who was racing in Belgium. He's doing quite well in Carapaz, and some pictures emerged of Mark, good up and coming Irish rider, who was placing in these prominent Carapazes, but he was wearing a pair of shoes that were held together with duct tape. Chris Huel Jensen found out who he was, seen him, doing well in these races, asked a few people who he was, got his address, sent him over a bunch of kit, including new shoes.
Stories like that make me just well up. Yeah. That is so beautiful.
Okay, finally, let's get into today's stage.
Okay.
So we had 177 kilometres and it was chaotic, and we were finishing up Super Dev Louis, and I've done a better job pronouncing that
that is stunning. Well done.
We the intermediate sprint point, which was going to be hotly contested, because we unpacked the Jasper Philipsen and Biniam Gourmet kind of head to head that was emerging, and maybe the only classification left where it could change hands. So that definitely was hotly anticipated. And then we had 3 climbs of note: the Col de Bayard, which was 6.8 kilometres at 7.3%. The Col de Noyer, 7.5 kilometres at 8.4%. And that was a Cat 1 and a real springboard for a lot of the action we've seen, including the ultimate winner in today's stage, Richard Carapaz, making his move. And then the climb to the finish, again, that Col Super Dev Louis, and that was 3.8 kilometres long at an average gradient of 5.9%. And we had flagged yesterday that today was one of the last chances in this Tour de France for the breakaway to finally succeed.
So the last day that a breakaway was successful was in the first weekend of the Tour de France.
Was it?
Yeah. So there has been none. There's really been nothing. And we love breakaways. Like, we love it for the sport, don't we? Because you get the excitement at the front of the race and you get the excitement later on in the race.
They haven't helped themselves though. There's 2 parts to it. Like, UAE have been a little bit stage hungry, but I feel like the longer a stage goes on without the break forming, the more incentive there is for UAE to close it down, because they're looking at total energy expenditure over the course of 3 weeks. So if they have to control a day like today, that's 177 kilometers. If they have to control it for the entire race, it's like, that's a lot of energy expenditure, which they might need from their domestiques later on. But if it goes to, as it did today, that big 40-man group didn't escape until 50 kilometres to go. you're taunting Pogacar into going for the stage. Like, there's 11 grand for winning a stage, plus Pogacar's definitely on stage bonuses, and he gives all that money to his teammates. Like, the lads aren't getting paid like Tom Cruise, so to say to them, clock in here, do 2-3 hours work to bring this break back, peg it at a minute and a half, and let Poggy do his thing on the final climb, it's a big incentive. So the breaks haven't helped themselves by taking that long to form, and this sort of political interplay of they have one rider in the break, they're trying to send another one across, we need to have another one going across, and it restarts the racing all the time.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think you're so right. I wish that the other teams had the balls to go a little bit more over the last couple of weeks, because it has taken away, I think, from a couple of the stages, and just that kind of dual excitement that you get on a day when you're watching a stage.
Before we jump in and talk about how the race actually unfolded, which was absolute madness and chaos and one of the most entertaining stages we've seen so far, I just want to do a small bit of business and talk about LeCol, because LeCol is today's show sponsor. And I really bounced around for a long time wearing different cycling kits. I must have tried every cycling kit out there until I finally got a piece of LeCol kit on, and then I settled, because they've really raised the bar when it comes to cycling clothing. It's founded by Janto Barker. He used to ride for Team GB. They've sponsored World Tour teams in the past. And what's unique about them is they've taken those learnings from working with Bora Hansgrohe, from working with Bahrain, and they've brought them back to the everyday cyclist. So whether you're trying to eke out little marginal gains in your Club 10, or you're just going to do a sportif, they have amazing kit that's going to facilitate that. We've been lucky enough to get an amazing discount for people tuning into the podcast. And this is special for Roadman listeners. If you use the code ROADMAN, ROADMAN, and then a numerical 20, so that's ROADMAN20, over on LeCol.cc, that's going to knock you 20% off your LeCol order today. It's mint kit.
It's really, really nice. And everyone who listens to the podcast will know that I am very, very clear to ladies who are buying their cycling kit that they should buy female specific chamois, and LeCol have amazing chamois.
The lad in the bakery earlier on, I was wearing LeCol kit going in, and he's like, oh, nice kit, where did you get that?
No way.
He's like, I've always loved LeCol.
He was like, how's your chamois?
That's a bit personal from the baker. So today the wind kind of looked like it might blow. It looked like we might have some splits, but it was like the big bad wolf. He huffed and he puffed, but it never quite blew the house down. It never quite materialised. What I would have loved to see was Beanie crashed. Cycling's ruthless. Beanie crashes heavy yesterday in the final. Alpecin put some pressure on him today. Like, take the first 40, 50k, especially when we start seeing those little splits. Force it in the crosswinds and see if Beanie can follow, because maybe he can't follow, and then Pedersen takes maximum points in the intermediate and it blows this competition wide open. I was a little bit disappointed we didn't see that.
The intermediate sprint happened at around, I think it was 114 kilometres in, basically, so they had a lot of time, didn't they, to get out there and really dominate and kind of put the willies up Biniam for a little while, or contest it. But didn't seem like it went that way at all. Yeah,
and we were 2.5 hours in. This is what we talked about with giving UAE that carrot. We were 2.5 hours in. We had the group before that got out with, it was Bobby Ungles, Thies Benoot, Roman Gregory from Francis Dejoux, and Magnus Kort.
He's all
limited energy.
Yeah, he's always out there, isn't he?
And a big lead out from him yesterday as well, which we flagged.
Yeah,
which was massive, strong lead out.
He's got that blue. He's rocking that blue mustache at the minute. He basically, somebody dared him that if he got X amount of new Instagram followers, I think 100,000, that he'd have to dye his mustache blue on the rest day.
Your hair blue if you get 100,000 Twitter followers.
Yes, absolutely. I literally do anything for 100,000. I mean anything.
So we're 2.5 hours in before that big 40-man group. It's too big to list like who's in there. The big players are Yates from Jaco Alula, Heinrich Mas, who we've seen animate in the final as well, Richard Carapaz, Geraint Thomas was in there for a little bit. This big 40-man group went about 2.5 hours into the race, so that's a lot of racing before that's actually kind of fully formed. The intermediate sprint was taken, as you'd expect, by the breakaway. Magnus Kort took the 20 points from Roman Gregory, 17. None of this really matters too much. What did matter behind was Biniam Girmay, back from not quite dead, but back from a little bit of road rash to beating Jasper Philipsen, and I would say almost certainly locking away the green jersey competition. They came 5th and 6th in that intermediate sprint.
Yeah, I think it's done and dusted now, as you said. I don't think that crash was too bad from Gourmet. He had came out afterwards and just said, I was in the doctor, a couple of bruises, a couple of scratches, and I'm fine. These lads are made of very, very tough stuff. So something really interesting came across the radio. So I spoke about this in a podcast a few days ago. I absolutely love these little insights that we get as to the team radio. They pop up on Eurosport, basically what the team car is saying to the riders. So the Ineos DS, basically he was talking to the team and he said, Visma are jumping because they are seeing what we are seeing. Now, I hadn't a clue what he meant by that, and I don't think the commentators really explained it very well. Do you know what he was
I think they were seeing a little bit of weakness, and we have seen this through the Tour. UAE haven't selected a team for the crosswinds. They haven't selected a team of big rollers. You know, they have Wellens there, but they're not a team like Jumbo. Jumbo, when the wind starts blowing, you know, they've Thies Benoot, they've Christophe Laporte, they've Wout van Aert, they've Jan Tratnik, they've some of the best rollers in the world. Jumbo are present, and they're dominating the front of the bunch when the wind is blowing, when it's chaotic. They're classics riders. It's a team of classics riders. Yeah. Classics riders can navigate the chaos much better than these featherweight riders, you know, like Almeida, like Yates, Soler. Like, they aren't people noted for their classics riding style. So when it turns into that classics battle, we are seeing Pogacar getting a little bit exposed. And I think that's what they were talking about, that Visma had interpreted him being a little bit exposed. But the thing is, Tadej is just so strong. He doesn't really need to be babysat in the same way as we've historically known GC riders to be babysat. Like, where even, you know, Bernal took a lot of babysitting, Froome, Wiggins, these type of guys needed people around them all the time. Tadej just seems to be able to, he's a great bike handler, super strong, you know, he's won Strade Bianchi. So
before everybody texts in and leaves comments in their droves, Anthony, you're not like all them Jumbo anymore. You've said it like three times. Come on, we're too far into the season for this.
This is why they need to stop calling teams by brand names. Yeah. Like, it needs to be, who's it, Legion.
Yeah.
The only team that have done it.
It's a good one.
There is a bit of rumour that Yates is sick as well. And some of the other lads didn't look super strong, so they're maybe trying to capitalise on that. But
yeah, as you said, it's a ruthless sport. Ineos comes across the radio and they're like, yeah, come on, let's strike. They look like they're in trouble.
I'd say they came across the radio. If they had to come across the radio to all the teams, I'd say people were like, Ineos, they're still there? Ineos is still in the race?
Who?
I thought they were gone home. Laurens de Plus is probably their best result of the week there. What did he get today? I think the Laurens de Plus, he pulled out a 4th today.
Wow.
They should be popping champagne. Their race has been so bad.
It has been awful. Okay, so the break is gone. So explain to me why UAE didn't chase the break then. They let it go.
Well, as I was saying, they probably had that discussion in their head going, we were never going to control today. Why would we need to control today? They control today if a GC guy went up the road. Yep. When they get that composition that they like, they're happy with the 4 in front. They're happy with the 40 behind. I don't want to say they're happy with the 40 behind because it's a big group. But a group of 40 like that's never going to cooperate too well. And it's not going to pull out that huge advantage. They also had teammates in that group. So they're not going to chase the group because they have teammates there. It turned out everyone had teammates there. Like, you know, we seen Jan Hirt playing a role in the final for Remco. We seen Jonas being helped out by Wout van Aert, by Christophe Laporte, by Thies Benoot. Like, it seemed like this was a race of satellite riders. Everyone just up the road, and they came into play at different times.
Yeah, because I'm always looking at these satellite riders that go out, and I'm like, that feels to me like such a waste of time. They should be back, you know, helping their team leader in that moment, up those climbs, in those crosswinds. But it does make sense. You can't
help them in the climbs, though. Cause like, there was a great... it was former Johan Brunel talking about on Twitter... the race escapes me, maybe it was the Giro. Ineos had numbers in the final, and there was people critical of them saying, like, they have numbers in the final, they need to use these numbers. Like, if you can't ride, you can't ride.
That's
like,
the point.
I remember looking at Filippo Ganna there in the final. Like, they may as well have had no one there because he can't move, he's pinned, he could hardly get a bottle out of his cage, he was that fatigued. So the assumption sometimes is to look at it on TV and go, oh, well, it's great to have numbers around them. But if they're hanging on for dear life, like
Yeah.
you know when you're out on a ride and you're hanging on for dear life, it's very hard to do anything else. So that's the same for them, just at much higher speeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
just so to fully explain why they didn't chase. So they didn't chase because there's no one threatening up there. And if it goes further into the stage and Poggy gets a smell of maybe I might, like they could have thrown Pollitt onto the front and maybe pegged the gap, but they weren't that motivated because the break got a little bit out of control and it's taking too much energy for them to close that. So then it's like chill for the day. Also, if you're more of a traditionalist in cycling, you would say there's a little bit of a spread the wealth around, and a lot of teams have got nothing out of this race. I know EF had a day in the yellow jersey, but they haven't won a stage, and it's a huge result for them today.
So that was going to be my next question, because I love thinking about these little brown envelopes that are being, you know, and these little nudge and winks that are going on between the owners and the riders that are friends and training buddies throughout the rest of the year. Is it a little bit of a case of, lads, leave it out, let the breakaway go, give somebody else a little bit of glory, let our sponsors keep on coming back and giving us some more money for next year? Do you think there's any of that, or are UAE just killers?
No, there's none of that, but what there is a little bit of let's bank a favour. Like when's Poggy in trouble in, doesn't look like he's going to need many favours in the Tour de France. I assuming he's not going to go for the Vuelta, even though it'd be epic if he did.
It would.
World's Olympics looks more likely. But is Poggy going to be in trouble and he needs a wheel? He needs, you know, I don't mean an actual donation of a wheel. Like he needs a wheel to break the wind for him in, you know, Lombardy down the road. And it just pays to have friends instead of enemies. So if you can give out a gift like this, it wins a lot of credit and favour in the bunch. And if you're rootless, it also goes against
the other way
in the long run. So I don't think it was a bad thing the guys didn't chase today.
Okay.
Looking ahead at kind of the front of the race now. So we have that group of 4 and then we have that group of 40. So it's a really interesting dynamic here, because you have the group of 4 which are going to cooperate really well, and then the group of 40 behind which is going to cooperate horribly, because some teams have 3 riders in there, some have 2, some have 1. A group of 40, you can think with a group of 4, it's very obvious if someone skips a turn. You're probably 30 seconds to 60 seconds on the front, pull to the left, next guy comes through, same rotation. It's smooth. Maybe someone's getting a drink occasionally and they say to their, you know, escape colleagues, going up there, I'm having a drink, and then that'll work itself out over the course of a few hours. When you have a group of 40, you have people sitting on, skipping turns, going back to the cars. It's chaos. You never get that real continuity and momentum with it. So because of that, the riders in the race that are talented climbers like Yates, like Mas, and like Carapaz, they have to play this little game of hoping, cajoling, persuading lads to work. Because if that gap gets too big between the group of 40 and the group of 4, it's not like they can ride across a 5-minute gap on the final climb. They need to keep that gap manageable. A minute, 2 minutes, so they can ride across it on the final climb. And ultimately, that's what they done. Yates went across, like literally instantly across to that. I was flicked on my phone.
This is Simon Yates now, not Adam Yates. Okay,
Exactly,
so this is Jaco Alula. So this is Adam's brother, who's also an incredible rider.
2-time Tour de France stage winner, and you know, very accomplished rider in his own right. He rides across pretty easily to that group. Then he's joined by Carapaz. Heinrich Mas sets off behind. Not really much of a feature on the stage. Carapaz catches Yates, and after a whole day out on the break, those 4 just become redundant, and that's their day over. Thies Benoot has a little bit of a marginal role to play there on, helping Jonas out, putting a fire out. But for the rest of the stage then, up front, we got the race within the race. We got the Carapaz, Yates fighting out, and kind of Carapaz, I think he had a 13-second gap over the Cat 2 climb. Then there's a 7k descent and a 3k climb to the finish.
I'm watching as I said to you when he got to the top, I was like, is Carapaz a good descender?
Yeah, great descender.
Yeah, he's absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
stunning to watch. And Yates is good, but then you saw Mas coming down behind him. Great. He just looked hulking and awkward. Yeah.
He's a bigger frame as well, and he's a bit more ungainly looking. It was pretty cool to see Carapaz. I know you're not a huge fan of Carapaz.
No, listen, I'm absolutely delighted Carapaz got a stage, because he's just been amazing entertainment. He's been fighting every single day to get a stage win. So
first ever Ecuadorian to win a stage as well.
It's amazing. No, I was really, really delighted that he got a stage win.
Yeah, he actually probably would have won a stage, or him and Cuyato from Ineos were both teammates, and he gifted Cuyato the stage a few years back. So kind of had a stage almost before.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It was
Wow.
nice for him to complete the set as well, because that's Giro Vuelta Tour stages for Carapaz.
And he's in on the Olympic bike. He's the Olympic champ at the minute.
Not selected this year though.
Not selected, yeah. I'm sure we'll go into that a little bit further as the Olympics gets closer. We'll go into those, but
There's a few controversial selections around that.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and one of the most controversial, and that's been making the headlines as well, is Pogacar's fiance Urska not being picked, and apparently Poggy's going nuts in the background.
So yeah, we hear what his mate Mao has to say about it. So we had that race within a race, and then we got to watch the GC battle unfold. I actually just thought UAE were going to roll it across the line. I didn't think anything was going to happen. And Ciccone came out, and he kind of kicked off this attacking. Ciccone went in, I think he's like top 10 on GC. Do we know where Ciccone is on GC? Ciccone is, yeah, he's 8 on GC. So this is what I mean. We talked about this a couple of days ago. You get these races within the race, because Ciccone kicked that off. And then, like, who's going to close him? Well, I think he's not going to close him. He doesn't care. Jonas isn't going to close him. He's not going to care.
But 9th, 10th, 11th, yes, G.
So Israel starts defending their 8th place or 9th place on GC. But it seemed like that just woke Poggy up. I think up to that point, he's just like, I'm just going to roll it. And even afterwards, he said, like, what's his quote? No, it was just a stupid instinct.
I love that. He can't help himself. It's just Poggy doing Poggy things, isn't it? He cannot help himself. He just wants to go. I love it. So Ciccone's gone up. He's attacking. Jonas or Poggy aren't covering. And then it's closed down by G, should I say. And that's it. That's it done.
Pretty much.
Poggy goes up the road.
Yeah, so we've seen, good riders dropped out of the GC group on the Cat 2 climb. Like Jorgensen was dropped out of the Cat 2, which left no teammates.
Sorry, before you go on, that was my next question. So Pogacar was very isolated earlier in that stage when the wind started blowing, like the wind was howling, and he was kind of on his own doing his own thing. And then as they got the climb, Jonas is completely isolated. So that's what I was thinking. How do these teams go about? How does the director sportif pick the teams for these races? Because you're literally encountering every single type of obstacle that you can possibly get over the 3 weeks.
UAE got heavily criticised a few years ago for having a very poor support team around Pogacar, and then they were very active in the transfer market, bringing in the likes of Yates, Jay Vine, Soler. They really built their team around climbing domestics. They've put in one or two of the big roller types, but they've gone heavy to have people around Pog to set them up in the finals. Jumbo? No.
Visma, at least the bike, yes.
It's never going to change. He needs to go back to Jumbo. Visma, their hand has been forced a little bit. We've seen they lost Roglic, obviously, in the transfer market, which would, he would have been there as co-leader with Jonas, giving them a lot more options.
Yeah.
We also lost Sepp Kuss with COVID in the run-up to this, and Sepp Kuss has historically been as good as any of the best GC guys in the climb. So we didn't have that last man, that trusted lieutenant around Jonas. Jorgensen has stepped in to fill that role. Today, Jorgensen, I don't know if he had a bad day or what, but he's dropped from that GC group on the last Cat 2.
Yeah, I think he did a lot of work, didn't he, earlier on he basically shielded Jonas from those wins that Pogacar was kind of isolated out in. Just as an abide, I saw a great quote from Matteo Jorgensen from the Plateau de Bea stage a couple of days ago, where he had to do a bike change just before the climb started. So he didn't have his bike computer. He didn't know what watts he was doing. So he just rode the whole thing on feel. That's crazy.
But Jorgensen shouldn't be dropped in the Cat 2 climb today.
Yeah.
Like, he done a bit of sheltering from, that's bullshit. I didn't hear him saying that, but whatever he done earlier in the stage, Jorgensen, it was 10th or 11th on GC or something. Like, he's been climbing in the front group all the time, and he's getting dropped on a Cat 2 when there's still like 35 guys left in the group. Like, it was a really bad performance from Jorgensen today. Left Jonas briefly isolated, but because of that 40-man group up the road, he still had Laporte, Wout van Aert, and who did I miss? Thies Benoot in the original 4-man group. So he was momentarily exposed. Pogacar attacks. Remco is the only one that can follow. He couldn't quite follow, but he was closer to being able to follow than than Jonas was able to follow. And it ended up being Jonas having to kind of lean on a teammate to put out that fire for him. And that was pretty interesting to see. It's the first time we've seen that power balance slightly shift towards Remco. It was a good climb for Remco though.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was the really exciting part, wasn't it? Seeing Remco, that explosive climb. And actually, if you go back and watch the footage, you will see when Remco comes around Jonas kind of gives a little kind of defeated head shake. He was like, I can't go with him. There's nothing I can do.
It's like, I'd say Jonas is just thinking like, Pog doesn't need to attack. Like, he's over 3 minutes already. I think 3 minutes and 9 going into today's stage. He doesn't need to attack, but Pogacar just doesn't play by the rules. He's just a racer, and when he smells blood in the water, he obviously felt that Jonas wasn't on a great day, or looking at his body language, didn't think something was right. And when he smells that blood, he's just a killer, and he just goes for it.
Yeah, he's a killer. And I think that because Jonas has been putting out so much fight and talk in the media, look, I don't know if that's actually Jonas or the Visma PR group, the Spin, but I think that really gives Pogacar like impetus to just keep going and going and going. And I know you're going to go through the stage tomorrow, but we're up in the high Alps tomorrow, and that would have really been looked at somewhere where Jonas Vingegaard would really soar and do really, really well. So maybe he just wanted to put in another killer blow before they got up there.
Yeah, so today he got lucky because when he got gapped and Remco, so we've Poggy at the front of the race, Remco's just behind him, and then Jonas is behind. It doesn't look like he's going to close up on Remco, but then he has one of them satellite riders from earlier. Laporte comes along at quite a valuable time because it was coming into a descent. Jonas hasn't been descending super well. Laporte's able to close up that gap to Remco, making it a three. The three of them now chasing Poggy. Interestingly, Pog came up to the Wanty Group Goubert rider, Binny Im's teammate, Zimmerman, who tried to trade off with him for a little bit.
So I was so interested when I saw that as well. I was like, what is the story with this? Again, is this trying to like bank favours? I was like, why?
Tell the kids you don't have a few turns of Poggy.
Sure, I did a few turns of Poggy a couple of months ago as well. I've been talking about it non-stop since, so I don't blame Zimmerman, but it kind of did leave me scratching my head a little bit.
And so then we have Laporte is after closing up to Remco, Pog, Jonas, all in one group. They're kind of looking at each other. Laporte setting a little bit of a tempo, kind of thinking, I hope I can bring this home. And then, boom, from behind, Remco attacks. Poggy and Remco look like they're quite good friends.
They're mates.
You seen in that quote at the very start, Remco said, I think Tajay could have reacted, but he left Visma Leasebike do the work. He definitely could have reacted, but they're friends, and I actually think Pogacar would prefer to see Remco getting second rather than Jonas.
Yeah, I think they're very close, and yeah, they're definitely buddies. So I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. Even though when I did see Pogacar, when Remco was chasing him down, I was like, nah, Pogacar's too much of a competitor. He's too much of a killer to hand anything to anyone.
Well, he's not handing it, but he's just leaning more on. So he leans on Jonas, and then he gets his satellite riders back, who kind of saved the day for him, or he would have hemorrhaged probably another 20 seconds to Remco. Like, he gets Wout van Aert and Thies Benoot came back, and Poggy just gets to sit there as an armchair ride, and he's obviously going to spring then at the end. The attack with 300 metres to go to take some seconds. I don't think the time is too important today. Like, there's seconds in it. No one took crazy seconds.
I think Jonas lost 2 and Remco took 12.
Yeah,
as far as I know. So yeah.
But what is super important, the momentum shifted.
Yeah.
The momentum, we talked about a few days ago when Jonas beat Pogacar in the sprint. We're like, oh, momentum has shifted back to Jonas. I think Jonas has lost the momentum to Pogacar in a big way the last few days. That's not coming back. But now he's lost that momentum to Remco. Remco's seeing blood in the water as well. And he knows if he attacks, well, Poggy's not going to close him. Why would he? He's so far ahead of him. So it's going to really expose Jonas and his lack of climbing domestiques, I think, when we move into the Alps.
Yeah, it's still a lot to look forward to over the next couple of days. We'll go through the results and then maybe you'll do a little bit of reaction after today. Okay, so the stage win, we had Richard Carapaz, the first Ecuadorian to ever win a stage in the Tour de France. So that was amazing. As I said, I'm so delighted for him. 37 seconds later, we had Simon Yates, and then Enric Mas was 57 seconds behind Laurens de Plus, as you spoke about a few minutes ago, from Ineos.
Good ride from Oscar Onley, actually, in 5th.
Yeah, the British guy from DSM, that's right. So he was 1 minute and 44. Now, Eurosport loves to kind of follow this guy around the pack because he's a British rider, but he's not someone I'm super familiar with. So that's essentially the top the top 5 of the stage win today. Anyone else there kind of stick out for you, Anthony?
It was off in that big break.
Court Magnus Court was there. You know, he rolled a 7th after being out in the kind of the front group all day, so that was quite good. I'll go through the points classification next. So we have Biniam Gourmet again. He's on 387 points, and then Jasper is behind him on 354 points. So I don't think we're gonna get a change in that green jersey. Your man, the Cofidis rider, Coquard, Brian. Do you know how to pronounce that?
Coquard.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce his name. He's in 3rd at 188 points. He has been, like, he's really been putting it to
Best of the rest.
Yeah, best of the rest. He has been sticking it to the rest of them on those intermediate sprints for sure. Okay, and then the mountain stage again. This is almost the exact same as the GC, but we've got Pogacar on 77 points, Vingegaard on 58, Remco on 42, and then we've got Jonas Abrahamson, who's in the polka dot jersey and polka dot shorts for the first 7-8 days of the tour. He's still hanging on in there in 4th, and I hope he does kind of hold that place. Finally, we've got our GC. So Pogacar in 1st, and then 3 minutes and 11 seconds after him is Jonas. Remco is 5 minutes and 9 seconds off the leader. And then we have João Almeida. He's 12 minutes 57. Behind him is Mikel Landa. Behind him again is Carlos Rodriguez. Anyone again there that kind of sticks out to you, Anthony? I don't think that there's no one has really changed there, or there hasn't been much movement in the top 10 of the GC.
No, I think today, maybe we might see a little bit of a Jonas Remco shuffle. Is the only one I'm kind of excited about.
That would be 2 minutes, over 2 minutes.
So today after the stage, Remco said, I felt Vingegaard was a little bit on the limit. When Tajay attacked, I was the only one more or less close. I'm not going to say I slowed because I rode away from Jonas after that, but I couldn't get back on the wheel. I just reacted too late. In the end, it's 10 seconds or so, and that's all good. But the fact that the gap to the guys behind me in GC is 2:30 is even better. He set out with the kind of goal to hit a podium and get a white jersey. He's accomplished that.
But he has the white jersey really, really. Yeah, he definitely has that, yeah.
But I do think if there's blood in the water, he's going to go for it. Tomorrow we're heading into, as you say, more mountainous terrain. Look, the thing that's been levelled at Remco all the time is he can't do half an hour plus climbs. He can't do 45-minute climbs. He's answered that quite well in this tour so far. So tomorrow I don't see that being a huge problem for him.
A lot of Cat 3.
A lot of Cat 3s tomorrow. We're going to see up and down all day. We're going to see, what have we, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Cat 3s tomorrow, and maybe the sprinters get over the first 2 Cat 3s and contest. Jasper has been climbing okay, but Beanie's been climbing even better, so we'd expect him to be there. We may get a break going to the finish. I would imagine you're going to see a few fireworks on that final Cat 3 because it's only 30k from the finish with a downhill, so it's probably only 20k for the finish. Now it's rising up to the finish again. Poggy, he just, as he say, he just attacks when he feels like it. Yeah. But it's not a stage you would see that's going to be a massive shift in GC. The weekend's really where it's going to all be decided. We head into that.
Can't wait.
But hopefully more chaos in the crosswinds.
Yeah, can't wait.
Roadman, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tour de France Reaction. If you're enjoying myself and Sarah on this, please click up here because there's another video I know you're going to love, and take 1 second to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss tomorrow's show. See you then.